Tonight, $45 million in drugs taken off the streets and a massive organized crime bust.
This entire synthetic drug network was primarily funded through the illicit cultivation and sale of cannabis.
But it wasn't just illegal weed. York police seizing 5 kilos of the deadly drug fentanyl, the largest amount ever for the force. Plus,
it's absolutely something that's going to require action of every resident, every business owner in the city.
Fighting climate change one neighborhood at a time. The city looks for input on its action strategy. And it's been a week and the Cherry Street Bridge is still stuck in the up position. What's taking so long to fix it? Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. York police say they've dismantled 2 crime rings worth tens of millions of dollars worth of illegal drugs taken off the streets. Police say some of that illegal activity was being funded using government-issued licenses to grow medical marijuana. Lorenda Redekop has the details.
A huge haul of drugs, hundreds of thousands in cash and firearms, including this machine gun with a silencer.
This group had access to weapons and that they posed a significant threat to our community.
Project Zen brought in the force's largest ever seizure of fentanyl, with 6.1 kilos, plus cocaine, cannabis, and methamphetamine pills.
One drug we don't see here today is fentanyl, and that's because police say it would just be too dangerous. And with that more than 6 kilograms, they say it would add up to 6 million doses.
You cannot smell it, you cannot taste it, and you cannot see it, but it has a terrible and deadly effect.
The second investigation was called Project Moon. Police say Asian organized crime worked together with street gangs, including Toronto's Parkdale Crips.
The criminal associated to this project expertly abused the Health Canada medical licensing system.
Police say criminals obtained licenses to grow medical marijuana, sometimes leasing them from people allowed to grow it or pooling them together.
They would stack the licenses, which means you could put upwards of 4 to in some cases even 8 licenses under one address. We've always seen criminals or the criminal element exploiting the loopholes in order to produce more in order to make more money.
With some licenses allowing hundreds of plants if used legally, it resulted in large farming operations. Police say in total, they confiscated 20,000 cannabis plants.
Each day, hundreds of pounds of cannabis were being supplied to the illicit market. None of it was going to legitimate license holders.
Police say the money from cannabis funded other drug trafficking, including meth, MDMA, magic mushrooms, and the date rape drug. With the 2 busts combined, 50 people are now facing charges, and the investigations continue. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Aurora.
An update to our top story from last night. A Toronto man has been arrested and charged in connection with the stabbing on St. Clair. Police were called to St. Matthew's United Church on St. Clair near Rushton Road yesterday afternoon. It hosts a daytime drop-in center for homeless people. Police say a fight broke out between 2 men, with one of them grabbing a knife and stabbing the other. 56-year-old Grenville Johnson died in hospital. Police arrested Glenn McGregor and charged him with second-degree murder. The man charged in the murders of 4 members of his family made a brief court appearance today. Manhaz Zaman appeared via video link in a Newmarket court. The court granted his request to delay the case so he can change lawyers. Was charged late last month in the deaths of his father, mother, sister, and grandmother. The bodies of the 4 were all found inside their Markham home. He appears to have sent online messages about planning to kill his family on a chat site used by video game players. The 23-year-old is scheduled to be back in court in 2 weeks. The City of Toronto is readying a multi-billion-dollar plan to fight climate change, looking for ways to reduce greenhouse gas emissions locally. But before it commits to the decades-long project, it's running some of those ideas past property taxpayers. Adrian Chung was at a feedback session tonight.
The public pushes back and says no.
The plan is big and ambitious, but it all begins here.
We know well in advance what's coming.
The City of Toronto's plan to meet climate change head-on is spreading to residents, all asking questions on what they can do now or whether the final price tag will be fair.
That's not something the city government can do alone. It's absolutely something that's going to require action of every resident, every business owner in the city, all kinds of different folks.
The Transform TO plan was passed unanimously by City Council in 2017. The goal, to cut Toronto's carbon emissions by 80% by the year 2050. Major changes to transportation, to how buildings heat and cool down, to how waste is dealt with is in the works.
Whether it's taking transit as much as you can, or riding your bicycle, or if it's converting from a regular combustion engine to an electric vehicle, there's something that everybody can do to mitigate their greenhouse gas emissions.
This report is an update on what the city has done since 2017 to make Transform TO a little bit closer to reality. And city staff say a lot of those goals over the next few years are achievable, modeled on things that some cities around the world are already doing. The plan will take decades and cost property taxpayers tens of billions of dollars. Some residents say while they're on board, they're also concerned about how those costs will be shared.
I have very serious concerns that at present, the way we raise the funds and we distribute them, we ask the lowest income people in Toronto to pay the same levy as the highest income people. And we do this on TTC fares or garbage cans. And we increase those levies. So the poorest people think their cost of living is going up crazy.
2050 is the goal, but first, real changes and small steps over the next few years to make that possible. Adrian Chung, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette Kennedy's here with their first look at the forecast. Still August summer weather tomorrow, just cooler than we've been used to.
Yeah, it is going to be a little bit cooler, and it's going to feel somewhat more comfortable because the air mass not quite as sticky as what it's been. If we have a look then at what our weather headlines are, we're talking about a situation where this front that's been giving some of that active weather from earlier today moves away from us. This new air mass, it was just the leading edge of this new air mass moving in, and that's the new kid in town. Not feeling as humid, and we'll have some sunshine, especially into the first half of the weekend, but there should be a good amount as well into the second half. But what we're dealing with, just taking a look at what's going on really over the next 24 hours, clear conditions through the overnight. Tomorrow we start off clear, but watch what happens. Just a tiny little impulse wants to go through into the afternoon hours. So an isolated shower could be primarily to the north or east, but highly isolated in what we're talking about. 16 degrees, though, a little cooler for the overnight low, closer to seasonal. And tomorrow, 26, and basically feeling like that 26 degrees. And the wind's just a little bit breezy out of the west. We'll have a look at the weekend forecast coming up, Mike.
Okay, thanks a lot, Colette.
You got it.
Well, it's on to the quarterfinals for Mississauga's Bianca Andreescu after a hard-earned win today.
Andreescu has done it.
The 19-year-old knocked off Kiki Bertens after a marathon three-set match at the Rogers Cup this afternoon. She'll face former world #1 Karolina Pliskova of the Czech Republic tomorrow. But we are no closer tonight to knowing when the Cherry Street Bridge will get fixed. For more than a week, it's been stuck upright. Now, that's great for boat traffic in the Keating Channel, but it's a major inconvenience for anyone driving or cycling around the Portlands. Greg Ross tried to find out why it's taking the city so long to get it repaired.
Yeah, it sucks, man.
Emil Segwa works at the docks. Not having access to the bridge has added time to his commute both to and from work. He can't understand why it's taking so long for the city to fix it.
This should be classified as an emergency, you know? It should get it done the day after.
In a statement, a spokesperson from the city told the CBC the Cherry Street Bridge over the Keating Channel locked in a lifted position due to mechanical electrical failure. City staff met with representatives from Ports Toronto today, trying to figure out a way to safely lower the bridge and do any necessary repairs. But at this point, the city couldn't say how long it's going to take. Not good news for Patrick Younger, who takes the bus to work. He says it now drops him off much farther than usual.
Now we have to walk a good 15 minutes from the bus stop just to get to the neighborhood.
He says at times it can take even longer for cars to drive in and out of the area.
And I find there's a lot of congestion. The second 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock hits, there's lineups everywhere.
And he says that's taken a toll on the audiovisual company he works for.
They kind of got lost and they'd call us how to get here. And then all of a sudden we found out that this was the issue. So it's definitely affected our customer flow.
Cyclists are also forced to take detours into the Portlands, and this man says there are not a lot of good alternatives.
And it is dangerous because of traffic, trucks, potholes. speeding. It is quite dangerous.
We found this man who owns a mechanical services business taking a break near the bridge.
You don't have any suggestions for us on how we could maybe get that bridge down?
Just drive up on it.
I don't know if that's going to work.
Never know.
You want to try it?
Not with this truck.
The timing of this couldn't be worse. The Cherry Street Bridge is a key part of the Martin Goodman Trail along the waterfront, which just finally opened on August 1st. The malfunction that locked this bridge into the up position happened on August 2nd. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
A disturbing figure from Transport Canada today. The number of close calls between airplanes and drones has gone up, with Ontario seeing the biggest number of incidents. Kelda Yoon explains.
Assess weather. Yeah, clear.
Mike Campbell has been flying drones for 6 years.
We have checklists for flying, so you'll see when we fly that we actually check that certain things are done and operating correctly.
All right.
All important stuff, he says, before takeoff. But it appears not everyone is as cautious. According to statistics from Transport Canada, the number of close calls between drones and crewed aircraft saw a jump in Ontario. In the first 6 months of this year, Transport Canada says there were 33 incidents that posed a risk to aviation safety. In the same period last year, there were 24. Both Transport Canada and those in the drone industry say the increase in the number of unmanned aircraft likely has something to do with it.
What we have had is an explosion of drones from traditional retail stores that are very, very affordable and that are really quite capable of flying in many, many places.
Transport Canada says it's difficult to say how quickly the number of drones has grown because registration only became mandatory on June 1st. But at the beginning of this month, there were almost 9,500 drones registered in Ontario and 28,000 across the country. As a former airline pilot, Michael Cohen says crews are used to looking out for things like birds while flying.
But now they've got to be extra vigilant on the unpredictability of conflict with a low-level drone.
It's not uncommon for pilots to mistakenly think they've spotted a drone. Sometimes what they report as a drone is something else entirely.
I also think that there might be a bit of a tendency for pilots to report everything now as drones.
For instance, Campbell says in 2016, a pilot reported a drone flying near Billy Bishop Airport in Toronto, causing the aircraft to dive, injuring 2 people. Ultimately, the object was never positively identified, though Transport Canada says it is confident the majority of reports are accurate. It also told CBC News, "We are going to monitor the kinds of incidents that come in to see if there are trends that are emerging, to see if there are steps we can take."
We'll wait for
Campbell says he's hopeful the new drone rules introduced earlier this summer will eventually lead to safer skies.
I think it's going to take some time for the public to get fully aware of all the facts and all the information around flying drones.
Camera's good.
Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
I'm Natalie Nanowski. This North York home behind me is the subject of a lot of controversy. Residents on this street say it's being rented out as a 15-room hotel. I'll have that story coming up.
An Ontario farmer receiving a suspended sentence today in relation to a tragic incident from last summer. The courts found him guilty of criminal negligence in the accidental death of his 4-year-old son.
I mean, he's serving a life sentence of grief and remorse. It'll never leave him. It'll never leave his family. As his other children grow up, he'll have that explaining to do. I can't imagine what he must be going through emotionally.
Emmanuel Bauman appeared in the Owen Sound Courthouse for sentencing this morning. He received a suspended sentence with 3 years probation, meaning if he stays out of trouble, the sentence will be dismissed at that time. The judge wants Bauman to raise awareness of the dangers of farm accidents in other communities. His son died after falling out of the front bucket of a tractor-like machine last August. Bauman was working and his kids wanted to ride along. The 4-year-old died from head injuries. The case is believed to be the first in criminal law involving a child dying in a farm accident. Residents on a quiet North York Street say they've had enough. They say a nearby home is being used as a hotel with rooms as low as $50 a night. Natalie Nanowski has more.
Matthew Poon has to put a sign on his door, otherwise strangers will try to come in.
Usually right in the middle of the night. After 12, when they arrive.
That's because they mistake his home for the one next door, a short-term rental. Dallas Burns has had people knock on his door 3 times, including a few nights ago when he had to call the police.
They mistaken my house for Airbnb, and I said, I'm not an Airbnb, please go away. And they nearly smashed my doors down, and the police had to come.
You wouldn't know it from looking at it, but this 2-story family home is actually listed online as a 15-room hotel.
On Bookings.com, it's called the Grand Guest House, with double or triple occupancy rooms ranging from $50 to $100 a night.
That ticks you right off because you're thinking, well, why doesn't the whole world do that? Okay, if you're going to allow this one people to rent out every little space plus a closet in their house.
Last year, Toronto approved a set of rules for short-term rentals, but they were challenged. And now the matter is before Ontario's Planning Appeal Tribunal, formerly known as the Ontario Municipal Board.
It's extremely frustrating. We did the right thing. We passed the regulations. We protected the public. And then because the provincial government has, and Ontario is the only province that has this, the provincial government puts this body in place that can review cities' bylaws and decide whether they're approved or not.
This is not the type of land use that we, when we first moved in. This is a single-family homes residential area.
CBC Toronto tried several times to contact the home's owner, but had no luck. The city has flagged the home to the fire department, saying it doesn't comply with the fire code. As for now, Bookings.com has removed the listing. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
High drive, deep left field, and way gone.
What a shot. The Jays taking on the Yankees at home tonight after a 10-game road trip. Now, one of the team's youngest stars setting a new record. We'll explain and have your full game highlights after the break.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
The Blue Jays back at home tonight, and that means red-hot rookie Bo Bichette making his home debut. The Yankees getting to an early 8-0 lead, but the Jays make it interesting. Bichette hitting a 441-foot bomb, the fourth home run of his 11-game Major League career. Then in the fifth, he'd smack a fastball to right for an RBI double. The 9th game in a row he's done that, setting the record for the longest doubles streak since 1900. Now trouble for the Toronto in the 9th. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. appears to strain a leg muscle as he beats a throw to first. He's able to walk off the field, though. Yankees win tonight 12-6. Colette is back with her extended forecast. A couple clear nights that you're calling for. I got to find a way to get out of the city because it's Perseid meteor time.
Yeah, it is. And so this is a great opportunity because we have the weather to go along with it to do some of this viewing. And if you're wondering what the meteor shower is all about, this is the debris from the Swift Tuttle. And as you get into the overnight hours just before dawn, that's going to be your best viewing. And we've got the cloud-free sky, but you got to get away from the city lights. That's the only problem. So get away from that and you'll see a bit of a show here. Let's talk about what we had earlier today in terms of, you can see some of the temperatures, really warm on nation's capital, 28 degrees unofficially there, and 29 for Windsor. But what is to come? Well, we've been talking about this cold front working its way through. We saw some of the active weather earlier. Through the overnight tonight, clearer conditions, and tomorrow morning. But tomorrow afternoon, a few little isolated showers could pop up, really light stuff. And again, mostly that risk would be to the north or to the east. We're mostly going to be into conditions where things are looking really good and into the weekend looking great as well. So a lot of sunshine Saturday, a little more cloud trying to build in though as we get into Sunday. All right, for southwestern Ontario, what we're talking about overnight tonight, a look at your temperatures here. Lows, can you believe this? Getting back to where they should be at this time of year in terms of seasonal temperatures, 14 to 16 degrees throughout the region with those clear skies. And tomorrow we are looking at essentially seeing those temperatures for southwestern Ontario in that range from 26 to 28. Now the winds just a little bit breezy at times coming from a more west to northwesterly flow, so a little bit cooler there into the Sarnia area. All right, overnight tonight in the GTA, 15 to 16, again with clear conditions. And for tomorrow, the slightest chance for an isolated shower. Primarily, you get a great day that doesn't feel as humid. And that's what we're looking at for a few days to come. Then the humidity, as we start to get in towards Sunday, begins to build a little bit. Still nothing really to speak of, nothing to write home about. Some breezy conditions for you into Friday. So at times those winds just a little bit gusty. 26 degrees. Look at these overnight temperatures. Very comfortable sleeping weather. Saturday, mostly sunny and 25. A little more cloud cover. Slight chance of showers into Sunday, but it gets warmer. 27 and into Monday, 27. The next best chance we get into some showers, Mike, that's coming back at us Tuesday.
All right, looking good for these heading into the weekend. Thanks a lot, Colette.
You got it.
It is a well-known fixture along University Avenue. Almost 80 years ago, the Canada Life building opened its doors for the first time, but look at the top there. 20 years later, a special edition was created for the top of the building.
For Torontonians, it was sort of the way that we forecasted or at least told what the weather was going to be over the next short time.
We'll bring you to the top of the Canada Life building and explain how its weather forecast system works after the break. Well, long before the construction of the CN Tower, the Canada Life building was one of Toronto's main landmarks. In 1931, it opened its doors for business on University Avenue, but it wasn't quite finished. 20 years later, the company added a now well-known feature to its peak, a weather tower and beacon. Well, this week marks 68 years since that beacon has provided Toronto residents with weather forecasts. Our meteorologist Colette Kennedy spoke to Environment Canada's Dave Phillips about how it works.
Green, clear weather, no weather, you know?
Exactly. Green light means go.
Go for it, absolutely. Red flashing means rain in the next forecast period. It could be for today, could be tomorrow, depending upon when you're watching it. And then flashing white means snow. So hopefully that we don't see that in the summertime, but that is another indication. Now there's another way we can, it's sort of adding to not just that, but there's the tower. Those lights that go up and down the tower giving you kind of a temperature indicator. So very clearly, if the lights are going up, it means that the temperature in that forecast period is going to warm up. Temperature's rising. If the lights go down, you're looking at it, it's going down, it means temperatures are falling. And if the light just sort of stays there, it means steady temperature.
And if you can't see the tower, it's foggy. So now you know if you're walking along University in Queen, you want to know the weather, put down your phone and look up at the tower instead. That's our newscast for tonight. Chris Glover is here tomorrow night at 11. Good night.